Hi, it's Ken Kilday, and today you're going to hear a little bit of the conversation that I had with Colleen McKenna, the CEO and founder of Intero Advisory, the new licensed partnership that I'm adding to better serve my clients. Here's a little bit of what we had to talk about. Colleen, thank you so much for taking some time and spending a little time talking here on camera today. I'm super excited to be Intero Advisory's first licensed partner.
Well, Ken, we're super excited to have you as our first licensed partner. We've been planning our licensing program for a number of months. And as we talked about people that we thought would be a really great fit and addition to the greater Intero team, it was clear that you were top on that list. The way we've gotten to know each other, your philosophy, how you coach, how you train, how you contribute to our inside group coaching, it all just really lined up that you're the type of person that we're looking for to extend the Intero Advisory brand and really help more people as it relates to how they build their digital presence.
Thank you. Yeah, it was as I've gotten to know you, as well as your whole team. First of all, I always appreciate knowing more about entrepreneurs and how they started and their origin story, as we say. Uh, but really hearing, what encouraged them to start a business. But then, as I've met your whole team, I just realized that our core values are aligned, and that not only makes it very easy to trust, it inspires me and incents me to get to know more about you, your business, and every single team member. So it's been such an amazing year of so many changes and challenges and evolutions and pivots and every other word that we've talked about at our group calls on Monday and one-on-one, that having a foundation of trust with another business that I'm so proud to be part of has meant the world to me, and it helps me be even more excited about 2021.
Likewise, I totally agree. 2020 was a really fascinating year. And, I left 2020 coming into 2021, celebrating our 10-year anniversary. And when I think about how we started, I basically started at my dining room table. I don't have a garage, so my dining room table. And what we've been able to accomplish has been really gratifying. And as we really looked at how we can continue to grow, the licensing program was absolutely the kind of idea, the path that emerged, because we need to find people who are bold and passionate and lifelong learners and just really willing to put themselves out there and really want to grow their business. And they see that regardless of what their role is and how they work with their clients, that what we bring and our expertise really helps them extend. And I think that's what you saw. You do all this executive coaching and work with really great professionals. And what you're doing is you're always making them better, right? Making them stronger, making them better communicators. And what you're going to add with Intero Advisories, its Business Not Social program, is just another way of doing that and really helping them grow their business. And I know you'll see and experience exactly what I've experienced over these years. Wow, we're going to meet a lot of really awesome people together and we're going to help them. And they're really going to understand something in a way they didn't before working with us.
Yeah,
And I love that. I really do.
I think one of the most powerful questions you asked when the very first presentation that I ever saw you give was, "Are you invisible?" I think was your question, meaning on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
And for a lot of entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders that you and I meet every day, they have this great story and this great passion and a great business offering. And then when they go into LinkedIn, it does not show up the same way at all. It's sort of the minimum, like they filled out a profile sheet of some sort where they only hit the items where the asterisks were because they had to, and then a lot of the rest of it is blank and it doesn't tell their story. which means people that are looking for them can't find them. Their perfect clients can't find them, at least not in that medium.
Yeah, it's really so uh, revealing when we do that. When I ask that question, when I say go to Google and Google your name,
Hmm.
and there's really a greater level of disparity and proficiency on LinkedIn now than even 10 years ago,
Hmm.
which is kind of surprising. However, lots of CEOs, for lots of reasons, are not showing up as their best selves online. And I think that's a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity on the business development side, and it's a missed opportunity on the recruiting side. And what I have found very interesting for really the, pre-COVID, 4 or 5 years prior to that, every CEO said to me, help me figure out LinkedIn so I can hire people.
Hmm.
Absolutely, all good. We can do that. And I want them to understand, we want to really transition their LinkedIn profile from that online resume, or, when you think about it, a bio, an executive bio, or even perhaps what I call a corporate billboard, because a lot of times CEOs will just put the information about the company on their LinkedIn profile. I'm like, they're actually coming to learn about you first, then your company. So let's start with you. Why you? Why did you start the business? And you know what, Ken, my favorite multi-generational businesses, right? That second, third generation who's really expanded the business, found new revenue sources, really built it out. Built-in story. Let's tell that story. People like those stories.
Hmm.
So that origin story is always important, and it can be as an entrepreneur out of their garage. It can be first, second generation, or second, third, fourth generation. We've written plenty of those profiles. But just why, right? Why? Why do you do the work you do? Why did you start the business? Why are you in the role that you're in? And what's important to you? Because on that recruiting side, people want to know who they're working for. And now, sort of in a COVID world, it really may be for many companies less recruiting oriented and more business development.
Hmm.
Are prospects seeing you? Are customers seeing you? Are you connected to those people? Are you thinking about how you show up to those people? Well, how is it important that I show up well to those people? Absolutely. Right. So building that presence so that they best represent themselves and their companies is just so critical in today's world, because people can't get face to face. So how do we use LinkedIn as our digital handshake? Tell the story in a really compelling and meaningful way, connect with the right kind of people, and spark conversations.
You shared with us a few Mondays ago during one of our group calls the opportunity, I call it opportunity by the numbers. So talk about that a little bit, because I want people to hear what the opportunity is to be in an ecosystem of people like you and I, executive level leaders, all different types of business people. But let me hear you talk a little bit about those stats, if you will.
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand that you have to build strategic networks, and you have to build networks. And to me, it's not about building the biggest network, tens and 15,000 people, but networks that really resonate. And within one LinkedIn.com network, you can have subsets of those
Mm.
networks, right? And from different places or different geographies, alumni networks from places you've worked. I've worked with people where, when we look at their network, they can say, oh, that's when I worked in London, and this is when I worked in New York, and this is when I worked in LA. And they've got these different networks, and then they come together to build this incredible community of people who have interacted with that person professionally. And I do believe that whether it is as a young, emerging professional or a very experienced CEO, we all need to rely and tap into these networks. Conversely, we also have to be really good networkers, right? We have to be, it's a reciprocal kind of thing. We have to create introductions. we have to participate in our network to add value to it. So, in terms of some of the statistics, I think that there are, LinkedIn somewhere around 730 million plus people at this moment. It's always changing. It's always growing. This is January 2021. So in 2 months, this is going to be 750 million plus. Microsoft that owns Vistage, Microsoft that owns LinkedIn has 1.3 billion users. So there's a lot of room for LinkedIn to grow, a lot of room. And I think that moving people from one platform to another in a professional sense, it's a little bit harder to do than some other social platforms. I think that people who are on LinkedIn for the intention of doing business, for recruiting, have started to understand, like, yep, there are a lot of other platforms, but the scalability, the sheer number of people is on LinkedIn, probably will, as they continue to reach the potential market that's out there based on Microsoft users. So that's really kind of my thought. I don't know. Did you want me to get into more specifics on particular stats?
No, that's a good headline in terms of people understanding the opportunity and understanding why they want their billboard there. Something that really resonated with me and that I think people would want to know is I was introduced to Intero because I was a client first. So even though I joined LinkedIn when it was created in 2003, which means my first connection didn't come until 2004, because in those days, we literally, if anyone wanted a connection, they had to go walk the person to a computer and show them what it was all about.
Right.
That's the way it was back then. So, I've been a long time user, but not necessarily with a distinct strategy. And so we started with, I had a chance to have your team professionally write my profile and then to do group coaching calls so I could really get my sea legs around how to use LinkedIn in a digestible way. And then we progressed and you did some lead generation business for me as well. Again, this is not what a lot of us have grown accustomed to. The bot says, hi, insert first name. Looks like we have a few shared connections and we both went to insert name of my university,
okay,
which makes us all want to scream, but rather a well-curated list of people that I want to know, or I think I want to know, right? They have some attributes that my favorite people have, and we can start a conversation. And that's a lot of what I got out of it. And as we progressed, I realized that was a natural fit. Some of what I was already helping my clients do, which is bring their leadership brand to the surface, call it out in a really clear way, in an overt rather than a covert way, and then making sure that they show up cleanly that way across all platforms, whether they're in the more social outlets like Instagram, Facebook, and then a more professional setting like LinkedIn, that they're consistent. This partnership is about having the Intero team help me with things like profile writing, etc., that you already have a highly skilled team to do, and then me helping my clients in the Intero way have a real presence out there on LinkedIn. So that's the background for why it's such a great partnership between Leaders Cut and Intero Advisory. But where I'd like to go next, let me think about that. Or did you had some questions ready to go?
I do.
Let's go that direction for a little bit.
So my one question is, one of the areas that I think was so interesting about you, Ken, was how you approached personal branding for yourself and your business. You moved from a large corporate setting, and you have a lot of expertise in financial services in large corporations. Come over, starting your own business, you really saw the value of building your personal brand. And you take marketing very seriously, which I really, really appreciate, because so many people just struggle with that, and they struggle with writing that story and how they're going to articulate what they're doing and being really clear about that. What was it about the branding piece and the marketing piece that you like gleaned from being in a large corporation that you were able to like really figure it out for yourself?
Yeah, it's been a lifelong mission for me to prove that organizations that live what they actually preach, in the sense of when the human resources, when they really are the most important resource and they're treated that way and nurtured, that the business results are actually phenomenal. I think what COVID has done is created an elephant in the room of big companies' bad habits of no, we need everybody in the call center or the office or the bullpen, however they frame it, for team cohesiveness. When the reality is most workers drive for an hour to an office. They sit in their office or cube with headset on, interacting with customers all day, except for breaks and lunches, and then commute back home at night. There's no team cohesiveness happening. So now we're seeing that that wasn't true, right? And what it comes down to is I think companies, they controlled that because they could and they felt like they were in control, but that wasn't really in the realm of what they could really control. They could really control an environment, create an environment where we give people, and this was my transition from corporate to individual of, I saw on teams where we gave them a framework, and them being the team, each team member, a framework of, hey, here's our core values. This is what we want to deliver every time, a skeleton. So we all have the same 206 bones, absent illness or injury. However, we all look different, we move different, we think different, and those differences are pretty powerful when working with consumers. So I saw that on teams, if I created a great framework and let people be themselves, I would get the best of what they had to do, of what they had to offer, and they would, building on that, then they would bring that their own unique genius into the team on behalf of others as well. So it was bringing the best of the individual and having a focus on getting the most out of a team. I then translated that into my own business. So that's what I focus on, is helping businesses understand there isn't a magic sauce or a frame they have to follow. It's in their uniqueness that they draw clients in.
That's so interesting, because that really pulls in the talent dynamics piece that you do, the assessment. And our team loved when we did that with you, and making sure. And I think that goes back, let's think about that as it relates to personal branding. When you're in a big company, you play off of the corporate brand.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I'll pause. And less about the person. And I think there's a missed opportunity there.
Mm-hmm.
I love, when people have done those types of assessments like talent dynamics, and then they weave that into their LinkedIn profile, because when I read that LinkedIn profile, I'm like, wow, I understand something about them.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's really critical in building a personal brand online, understanding who you are. So that piece of your business, I think, is so interesting, and it plays so beautifully with the framework and the framework that we're bringing to you, which is, it's business, not social. I have it up here for a reason, right? It's not, and I think what's important is having that framework creates a process. Creating a process creates pieces of information you can measure. Measuring creates momentum, and momentum creates success. I think that you've kind of built in that whole process, and that's probably also a reflection of your background experience.
Yeah, yeah, and one of the great brainstorming sessions you and I did, where we were talking about profiles, in other words, we don't have a formula per se for a profile. So the profiles that we create for our clients they aren't formulaic. Again, name, date, serial number kind of thing. Uh, what you had asked out loud was, hey, does this profile say that I'm a star or a creator or a supporter, all talent dynamics profile types, profile geniuses? And that really resonated with me because that helps explain to people why profile writing is important, because the profile should bring up all the things that are important to you in the way that you see the world, in the genius that you bring on behalf of clients, business associates, partners, network, etc. So again, all that plays the role. And in terms of that transition from corporate America to entrepreneurship, I get the question often, different forms and different angles. But it's sort of, what do I see? Well, corporations, first of all, they have staying power, so they can afford to make a lot of mistakes without a big consequence. Whereas entrepreneurs, we can't afford to bet too many chips on just one hand, because otherwise we can't stay in the game. That's the reality. The other piece of that is what corporate America often offers is they have a structure. Sometimes it can be a bit bureaucratic, but it's a structure nonetheless that they can rely on. So a lot of the work that I do, especially I do work in corporate America and entrepreneurs. With entrepreneurs, we're usually working on structure, discipline, all those sorts of things that corporations almost take for granted. In corporations, we work a lot more with, how are you showing up as an individual? How are you just being yourself? How are you showing up in front of a group? And rather than sounding like Charlie Brown's teacher, you sound like somebody that everybody else in the room would want to know.
Mhm.
So that's a lot of the work that I was doing in terms of coaching, that gets even better in terms of how people use their resources like LinkedIn, like that powerful of a network, to really rise and make the cut, as we say, in
Mhm.
Leaders Cut.
And it's interesting because you're based in a smaller market
Mhm.
in Arizona.
Yes.
So starting a business, you can look at that and be like, oh, I'm going to just work off of my geographic area. But what you learned very, very quickly was, why would I just do that? Right?
Exactly.
I can work anywhere. And I think that that's another liberating piece, not only the piece about working remotely and seeing that it can work successfully, but I think for so many people, and I have the opportunity to talk with a lot of people, one of the questions I always ask is, are you working, meaning selling, doing business locally, regionally, nationally, or internationally? And for those who say locally or regionally, my question is, could you expand that?
Mhm.
And a number of times they're like, I probably could. I haven't really thought about it. Today's the day. 2021 is the year that probably makes for many people a lot more sense than it may have in the past.
Mhm.
In order to do that, though, you have to think once again strategically about building networks in different places, different markets. And we've worked with a number of people where they're like, okay, we're based in Baltimore, Maryland, but we want to open up an office in South Florida. How do we do that? Okay, here's a plan. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take years. It takes consistent effort in a 3 to 6 month period of time. And suddenly you have a whole new market available to you. And sometimes even if you're really, really on the money, really less than 3 months, you can do that.
Mhm.
And we've worked with lots of clients. We know we share some of those people in common, where they're new to a market and they've got to build a new network. And once they build that network in a really strategic way, a whole lot of new opportunities can appear. So, when you work for a large corporations, it's kind of like having a large geography, right? That company's either national, multinational. You might be connected, have a very strong internal network within that company across the globe. Who knows? But when, when a lot of people are transitioning out of corporate America right now, and they are starting their own business, their own consulting, their own coaching firm. And I think that there's lots of opportunity for people to like reframe how they appear, not only from their experience, but how they connect with people and how they can create new opportunities for their business growth.
You know, again, COVID has accelerated where we were already going, the
Mhm.
universe and how we work. And now, let me back up. My last corporate assignment was to be on team to build out an offer and a delivery that was completely digital, as we say.
Mhm.
So we were going to meet with clients on camera and use all the technology that we could in terms of screen sharing and automated scheduling and online scheduling and an app in their phone to keep track of our progress, so on and so forth. Well, 5 years ago, when I arrived to be on team to do that, that was a novelty. And I took a lot of those lessons, um, a lot of the foundation plus lessons
Mhm.
learned, and my own desire to work a certain way into my own business. And now COVID hits, and it's a pretty common question of how do I use technology to serve? And I'll tell you that the headline should be, don't assume what your customers want till you ask them,
Mhm.
because that's what gets in every organization's way of, well, my customers want to come to my branch. No, you want them to come to your branch because you paid a lot of money for your branch. I mean, calling out what's really going on until the customer says they want to do that. Uh, what I experience is people love the flexibility.
Mhm.
Jim Collins, the famous author, Good to Great, Built to Last, How the Mighty Fall, and so on. One of his quotes that I dearly love is, "Never forego the beauty of and at the tyranny of or."
Mm. Mhm.
It's not, do you work with people in person, or do you use Zoom or any of the other platforms? Video. Yes is my answer. Yes.
Mhm.
Up here in the Northern Arizona community, it is a community, and when we get a chance to be in person with each other, we do and we are. However, my background, for so many years, the jargon is I led distributed teams. That meant that I flew a lot.
Mhm.
And, my office was in Phoenix, Arizona, but I had team members in San Francisco, Denver, Orlando, New York City, and Indianapolis. And then the employer before that, it was spread out all over California. So I was accustomed to not being in physical presence with people all the
Mhm.
time. So I didn't rely on that.
Mhm.
And it really does change the perspective. But to your point, and I want to circle back to the alumni question of, where are my networks? Because I now have networks in different cities with different relationships based on what I was doing at the time. So, and it has now led to an international client
Mhm.
base for me that I couldn't have imagined. I didn't call that out as an intention when I founded Leaders Cut. It was more of, I want to work with people that share my values, that want to go one step beyond. When people ask me about business coaching, the answer to why use a business coach is usually a return question from me, which is, can you name a single professional athlete, individual sport or team, who has ever won any sort of championship and made it a profession who does not have a coach? I mean, you can play tennis casually, or you can win Wimbledon. The
Mhm.
Wimbledon route is going to require some outside perspective and objective advice and advocacy and hard conversations and fun conversations and action plans and et cetera. And that's what business coaching is all about, is taking people, business owners and leaders, up a few notches so that they can truly deliver the way they had always dreamed of and intended to.
Yeah, and there's no question. There's so much more to know, and there's so much more complexity in running a business, whether that's a business of 5, 50, 500, 5,000, 50,000, 500,000. there's so much to know. One person can't really know it all and figure it out by themselves. And I think that the coaching, I have a business coach. I do a lot of coaching. I love coaching. And, we kind of have a saying at Intero, do you want to learn to fish or do you want to fish dinner, right? Like how much coaching do you need versus training or having us really kind of manage it and do it for you? And people sort of get that visual, and people, I think, realize that they can't possibly process and master as many things as they need to in today's environment.
Mm.
I was talking to somebody this morning who, a CEO, and he said, I've got a technology background. I've been on LinkedIn a long time. And I have to say, there were two things that you talked about in a webinar that we did together a couple of days ago. He's like, I didn't even know what those were. I didn't know that they existed. I was actually on my phone Googling those two things because I was like, how do I not know about them? Is she actually right? He's like, he said, I was so surprised that they weren't even on my radar. I'm like, at that moment, whatever you were doing previously, they didn't need to be on your radar. Today, they need to be on your radar. So I believe our job is also to point out, spend time here, don't spend time on this, right? Like you need to know these sorts of things, but hand that piece off. How do you delegate and how do you think about this? And if you're going to delegate, what do you need to know so that person can be successful?
Mhm.
Right? We both work with and have people on our team that support us. You have a chief of staff, and I probably have a whole team of staff, right? That like just help me out every day. There's not a day that goes by where I might not have a question of them because they're doing something in a more rigorous way than I might be. And I want to make sure that I always have the most up-to-date information. So I might say, hey, has anything changed in LinkedIn Sales Navigator because I'm doing a coaching session? You know what? I'm pretty advanced in that. I still ask the question, what do I need to
Mhm.
learn?
Yeah.
And so it is that pursuit of information, but then it's also like, that's actually something I don't really need to know a whole lot about at this moment. And I think coaches help us distinguish those things in our environment too.
Yeah. You know what? Pause 1 second. My Slack is beeping because I forgot to pause it, and I don't want to risk any further noises. One thing that stands out is we all hire professionals that stay relevant in whatever their specialty is. And um, for you and I and our ability to coach, especially in the LinkedIn medium, but coach in general, we stay up to date on what's current, what's new, and how we need to iterate, especially in an environment that changes constantly. As a business owner, some of the other tools that I use to manage my business and run my business, I know what I know, and that's what I use.
Mhm.
So, QuickBooks Online could change 10 more times. I don't care unless it's something that I use to manage my business now. And that's the value of coaching in all its forms. And what we do every day for our clients is we help observe how they're playing the game of business and then what sort of additional items and pieces could be useful. Something that I've seen as your client and now as your partner is that you make things really digestible. The whole internal process is all about digestibility. We don't need to conquer the LinkedIn universe today if what you'd really like to do is find your ideal, you want to recruit some ideal talent pieces into your organization. That's where we're going to spend our time. That's what coaching's about. Is we're not trying to solve everything. We're trying to solve the things that the people that we're working with care most about. And that's
Well, I appreciate that. I mean, I think I really appreciate that comment because very often people will call us and you'll see and you'll have these conversations. They'll call and say, help me do LinkedIn ad campaigns or help me do this. And we can kind of do a very quick 2-minute assessment. And we're like, you know what? That's like phase 2 or phase 3. We need to let's kind of understand where you are right now, how you show up. And they're like, "How do you know that about me and my company?" I'm like, it's what I'm gleaning from looking, right? From your LinkedIn profile to your LinkedIn company page to your employees' profiles to your website. I looked at a beautiful, beautiful website the other day, and before I jumped on a call with someone, and uh, this person's on LinkedIn and they're creating content, they're blogging. There was no link from their website back to LinkedIn. So there was no social icons that said, "Hey, I'm actually on some of these other channels." And it was simply when I brought that up, he was like, "Oh my gosh, how did you know that?" I'm like, "I just looked at the footer of your website." So people can make really quick assessments and understanding. So we sometimes have to pull everybody, slow everybody down and say, "Hey, this is where we start." And that goes back to what we talked about already, which is that framework, that method, the strategy, and be like, "Let's start over here." Because if I just give you all of that or that ad campaign and show you how to run LinkedIn Ad Manager or you sponsor in-mails, you're not going to get the success you are expecting and that you actually deserve because some of the fundamental pieces are not in place. So we always want to make sure that we're being realistic and we're setting really clear expectations, but say, you know what, let's let's think about it from maybe a little bit of a different perspective than what prompted the phone call in the first place.
Hmm.
And we need to be those disruptors, those challengers, right? Of
Right.
saying, you know what, I know it's this. It sort of goes back to presuming somebody wants to come into the branch. And that goes back to, I think we have to be really pretty critically aware of asking really great questions and sometimes difficult questions and say, you know what, this is where the missed opportunity is. There's so much opportunity for everyone in business. I always say that, while there's a whole lot of new opportunities out there, you probably will have to uncover some different rocks.
Yeah.
And not to be cliche, but we got to look under new rocks because we got to keep our businesses going, our careers going, our recruiting going, our business development going. We have to keep all of that moving. And I want us to be the people that help support people as they're trying to figure this out in a space that they may not naturally be comfortable with.
Yeah. Well put. And that's a good place for us to put an exclamation point at the end of a great conversation. So thank you for making the time. Thank you for visiting with me and helping our viewers understand a little bit about why the partnership and how we serve, and having everybody see a chance for you and I to be in front of them together so they understand just how well we connect and
Mhm.
how smooth a partnership this is.
Yep.
So thanks, Colleen. I appreciate your time.
So great. So great to be with you, Ken. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking a moment to watch the video. You can find more information about me, schedule time, and sign up for our newsletter at kenkilday.com. See you next time.